Women on a Green Mission. Follow along as two friends document their unfurling permaculture journeys.
Join our chats each week where we'll be sharing how we and others apply permaculture to our gardens and daily life.
We're no experts. We're at the start of our journey, fumbling our way to a greener life. We love your company along the way.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. I've been playing with new toys this week.
Yes, tell us all about it. I want a progress update.
Oh, it's going so well. So what we're talking about here is soil blocking. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically this little contraption that you can buy and you mix up basically a soil recipe that's quite wet and slushy, and you jam that into this little contraption and it pumps out beautiful little soil blocks, and you plant directly into these blocks to keep them moist, and basically they're not in a pot. So it's really good for the roots because the roots get naturally air trimmed, so they're not going to get root bound in a pot or end up with J roots or anything like that. It's just, it's so easy. It's so good. So update on them. They have worked a treat. They have lasted. They've weathered the storm. So what I've done is I didn't want to buy plastic, but for the purposes of this, I went, you know what, I need to set myself up properly rather than do it half-assed and then fail and go, it doesn't work. So I've got what designed as sprouting trays. So they've got like a base, they've got like a sieve tray in the middle, and then they've got a lid. So what I did is I filled the bottom up with water to create that humidity. Soil blocks in the sieve tray with, some of them I tried with the water just touching the bottom, and some of them the water sat underneath, and then I popped the lids on. No difference whatsoever in the results. The results have been great. The only one that hasn't been awesome was the corn, but then my other corn as well, so I've got two different varieties. I've got Jolly Roger corn, and then I've got one of the F1s. Both only had a few germinate. So I think it was maybe either a me problem that I've maybe planted them too deep, maybe rodents have gotten into one. I don't know.
Okay.
But everything else that I planted, the basil, the okra, rosella, oh my God, so much. I've got flowers in there. I've got tomatoes. I've got cucamelons. I've got tomatillos. I've got Cape gooseberry. There's so much that I planted, and they're all just doing so well. So today the okra is going out, and the rosella I think will be ready to go out. So, I'm going to pop those out today. And then I've got some other, like I've got melons and pumpkins and a whole heap of stuff that I've got to plant out that I just put in pots as well. But I'm really liking it. I'm really seeing how beneficial this will be. So, next stage will be, planting out and see how they go, because you've got to be able to pick the soil blocks up and pop them into the soil. So, we'll see whether they can keep them together or they fall apart.
Exciting. That's very cool. And so how many soil blocks did you get, and what size did you get? Because I know a lot of people get confused about the size of the soil blocks, and a lot of people go with the smaller ones and then they pot them up anyway. Like how did you go about that?
I got I don't know how big it would be. I need a ruler. It might be the 5 centimetre by 5 centimetre or 4 centimetre by 4 centimetre.
So the bigger ones.
So the bigger ones, but not the biggest ones that you can get, because you can get big ones. They're for your bigger seeds and obviously your faster growing plants. So I've got the medium-sized one. It makes 4 blocks at a time. And in one tray, I can get, 4, 8, 12, 16 blocks in one tray.
Yep.
And I've got 5 trays at the moment. Yeah. So
and you're just going to direct sow them now? You're not going to pot them up?
No, I want to direct sow, because that's why I got them, so that I could direct sow. I'm trying to cut out as many steps in the process as possible, because like everyone, we've only got limited time. So I'm trying to make this as easy and as streamlined as possible. And I'm still using traditional seedling pots as well, because I just don't have enough trays to put the soil blocks in to keep them moist. So I'll still do both methods. But yeah, so far so good. I'm really, really enjoying using it. Yeah.
Because there's a lady I follow on Instagram, and she has like the smaller one, and then she has another cell block size, and when she presses it, it actually has an indent, and the small one then fits inside the bigger one, so she can still like pot them up, so to speak, and let them get bigger. But she's in a cooler climate, so I think she wants them a bit more robust before she plants them out. But yeah, I've always been curious about them, and I'm always like, well, if you water them, they're going to fall apart. But yeah, the underwatering obviously makes a lot of sense. I'd love to try them. They look really cool.
And even the other day, because we did have big winds, and I've got them in like the little, I don't know what you call it, the little hothouse tent, the little cheapy tents that you can buy. And the wind was coming into the tent. So I thought, they're going to dry out a little bit, because they're at the stage now I had to take the lid off because everything's too big. Yeah. So I can't put the lid on. And I thought, I probably should just give them a water. And I thought, I might just put the hose on mist and just turn it down and see how I go. So I just used a misting spray in there, and they held together. So, yeah, it was really, that was like, okay, cool. I don't have to worry about trying to water it in the corner and, messing up or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, if anyone has questions, can they jump on our little Facebook group and ask you? Because I know it's like one of those things. It's almost like sourdough. Like there's different recipes and there's different sizes and techniques, and like people get really into their soil blocking.
Yeah,
so
they
if
do.
people have questions, maybe jump in the little Facebook community group to ask Joe about it a bit more. And I think there's another guy in there, Aaron, he does a bit of it too. So yeah, I'm sure there's other people in there that have tried it, and we can get a little thread going on soil blocking.
Yeah, and I'll take any advice, because I did find that everyone gets really precious about their soil recipe. Like there was a few forums I jumped on, and that was like, it got a little heated. No, you can't use this. And because I just used, like, I had compost, I sieved some compost, I had some worm castings, I had some Cocoa Pro in a bag that I'd had left over. I found some vermiculite that must have been like 5+ years old. Like that was half a bag. And I wouldn't actually use that anymore, because I found out that process for making that is super energy intensive. So I went, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll use, sand or something else to, help with drainage. Or maybe I'll just, because you use that to aerate. I thought, well, maybe I'll just put a little bit of, bigger pieces in there of compost rather than just using the fines. So I just kind of, mixed up a little bit. It's kind of like cooking with leftovers, right? It was like I had this, I had that, and let's just do it. And then I just kept wetting it down to the point where once I pushed it into the block and then pushed them out, they held together. Yeah. So it was a little bit of experimentation.
Oh, cool.
And but yeah, if anyone's got a absolute tried and true like recipe that works a treat for them, let me know, because I'm open to trialing different things. My first crack at it. So yeah.
Excellent. An us update here. Busy week, not a lot of gardening, a lot of community stuff, which has been nice. I'm part of a mum's business group, and one of the ladies kind of launched her business this month, and she ended up having a pop-up stall. Yeah, so she's doing collecting vintage items, so a mix of like homewares, furniture, clothing, just nice things. And she has like a really good eye for finding vintage and recycled pre-loved items. Some of it, especially the furniture, she then does up and kind of zhuzhes to give it a second life. And she's also collecting towels and making like little kids shorts out of them.
Oh, cute.
So that's like one side to her business. And then the other side is like home organization and simplifying and curating your home. So she's based out here. Her business is called The Boiler Suit, but she had a pop-up. So we all went to her place and did a pop-up, and that was really great. It was a lovely night. And I've just been having some other quality mum time with some of the other mums up here and connecting. So I've had a really nice kind of community week, meeting up, being a bit social, just touching base with all our neighbours again. Like I feel like I got a bit busy, and you know how life gets. So we went up to our friends up the road and caught up with them and had a swim in the pool and just that kind of thing. So, and then lots of businessy stuff behind the scenes too. So got a business coach now for practical permaculture. We're getting a bit more official next year.
We're growing up.
Because I really enjoying it and loving it, and I want to nurture that. And I'm seeing the community that's coming out of it. And we've had our second permaculture at the pub. We had a really big turnout again. Totally different group of people, like brand new people that came. So we're looking at how we can facilitate more things for that up here in connection with the podcast, and some masterclasses for next year that we can offer for free, which will be really cool.
So exciting.
Yeah, so like social in that aspect of the business and trying to figure out what our community needs and wants and offer more things and connect more people. So yeah, I've been really leaning into that this week, and the people care side of our business and community. So that's been really nice.
You've been gardening your soul.
Yes. So yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
so
it's been
good.
really good.
So who are we chatting to this week?
Yeah, so we're talking to a guy named Marcus Pearce. So I interviewed him, and they actually ran an event down in Melbourne that my mum and I went to pre-kids. This was years ago. The Wellness Couch is what it was called.
Yeah.
And so anyway, went to this conference, learned about him, and recently he's released a book. He's had a podcast for a number of years called 100 Not Out. He's a cricketing fan, so it comes from that, but also just studying longevity. So he goes to the blue zones and hosts retreats, and he's fascinated with longevity, but not just the concept of longevity. Like once he got into it, he realized that there's no point in having a long life if you're going to have a really shit quality of life.
Yeah.
And how we have this, especially in the Western world, where you get to 70 and you're really ailing, or you've got dementia, you're having falls, you got diabetes, like whatever it is. And then you spend the next 40 years or 30 years, like we're aging and we're staying alive so much longer potentially, especially the next generation to come, like they're going to live for a long time, but we're not having a good quality of life. So he kind of was like, well, what's the formula? What's the magic formula for not just living long, but living healthy? And what aspects of our life give us longevity, and what aspects of our life give us quality? So, yeah, and it kind of ties in with permaculture and the fact that, we have these design principles to help design our life. So if we overlay our ambitions or our values and what we want out of our life, how do we then use these 7 areas to design a life that we're happy with and that's meaningful and that we can live for a long time in a really good way? So it's all about zone 0, and designing your zone 0, rather than your homestead and your garden, coming back to where it all kind of begins.
That's so beautiful. And I think this time of year, it's really ideal to be focusing on that again, because we can get so busy and we get caught up in, it's the Christmas rush and we've got all these events on and we get busy and life becomes a little challenging. You've now got to, engage with people that you may not want to be engaging with all the time. And there's just a lot happening. So I think this is a really good, episode to have to sort of bring us back to, okay, what is it that I'm trying to achieve in my life for myself and for my family, and bringing it back into the individual.
He has also very generously given us a link for all of our listeners to have a free copy of his ebook. So the book, but just in digital version. So anybody who wants it can read his book for free online through the link. So yes, wonderful. Very generous of him to give that to us so that everybody can read it. Have a listen to the episode, see what you think. But the link for the book will be in the show notes and in our email list too. So if you want to jump on our email list. And a little reminder as well that we have our Christmas giveaway. So please jump on. just all you have to do is sign up to our mailing list. We don't really do a newsletter or anything like that, so you're not going to get spammed. It's just a way for us to connect with you if we ever need to. So yes, jump on, join the mailing list, and you will go in the run for an epic prize pack. It's all over Instagram if you want to know what's in it. So jump in there and have a look.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's switch over and we'll let you enjoy the interview with Marcus.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Practical Permaculture Podcast. This week I've got something different for us. We're not talking about gardening. We're going to talk about Zone 00. How are you, Marcus?
Great, Alysse. Does that mean we're talking about life?
Yes, life.
Great. I'm good at talking about life. I don't think I'll be that great at talking about gardening, although your mum, your beautiful mum Anita, gave our family one of those little, pardon my ignorance, those 36 square little peat permaculture starter kits where you put the seeds in and away you go. And we got our first sprouts the other day. I've had seeds in my office for years from a listener that sent me seeds, and I'm like, one day I'm going to plant them. And we did, and my kids are cock-a-hoop because we have sprouts of some kind. I don't even know what they are, but they are growing in the kids' bedroom right now. Very excited. So I'm glad we're talking about life and not the garden, because I'll leave the gardening to you. And I'm very happy to talk about Zone 00.
No worries. So before we get too far into it, we just acknowledge the land that we're recording on. So we're back to you, Marcus.
I'm on the land of the Arakwal people up in the Byron Shire. So it is, yes, it is great to be on the land of the Arakwal people here up in northern New South Wales.
And I'm in northern New South Wales, but our local area are the Yagle people. So I'm down here a bit south of where you are. Awesome. So back context. Marcus does know me. Obviously, he just referred to my mum. So I heard about Marcus through my mum. So she gave me your book. But prior to that, I think I went to a wellness festival in Melbourne when I was still pregnant with Addie. So that would have been 7 years ago. That I think the Wellness Couch maybe. Did you guys host it?
Yeah, we ran events called the Wellness Summit. Yeah, I used to have a podcast network called the Wellness Couch, which is like a big radio station all on different health and wellness shows. And we were in a dinosaur company in that our business model was running events. And then so when COVID came along, that kind of died like a lot of them did. So, but yeah, many of the podcasts still live on. But yeah, for 7 years or so, ran events called the Wellness Summit and other spin-off events as well. But I didn't know you came to a wellness summit. So
yes, there you go.
Cool.
Well, that's how I first heard of you. And then your book came out. So Mum and I both read that, which is Your Exceptional Life. And you have your podcast is still going, isn't it? 100 Not Out? Yeah,
100 Not Out. Yep. Your mum's one of those long-time listeners that I met your mum through the podcast, and she was one. I love it when people come up that you've never met before. She's like, I've been doing the ironing or doing the dishes for 10 years listening to you on a Monday or something. And when your mum came up to me once and said something like that, and I was like, I just love that about podcasts. Like, you just don't know who's listening, what they're doing, what rituals they have around you. Like, ours comes out at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning, and I love it when people go, my week starts off, on a Monday morning with you. It's like, it's a really cool, podcasts are just great for that, because radio as a rule is a very intimate medium, way more intimate than TV and print. So yeah, they're very special. Very special.
Super cool. So Marcus isn't very big in permaculture, but when I read your book, there are so many parallels to permaculture design theory. And so that's why I wanted to get you on to talk about Zone 00, which in permaculture is the self, and starting with your, inner space, I guess. And because your book's about designing the life you want to live and being really intentional, I thought you'd be a really good person to talk to that. So yeah, do you want to kind of give us a bit of the background of the book and like what you do and how it came to be?
Yeah, sure. I'm conscious of talking the leg off a chair, so I won't give too much of the background because it might bore a few or a lot. But I suppose for me, I've always been interested, fascinated with why a lot of people, particularly in personal growth, will master one or two areas of life, but suck at one or two or three or four. So we might have people that are great in business, but they suck at family, or people that are great in family, but they've got no time for friends, or they could be great in family, but they never have time to exercise or to eat well. And a lot of people just struggle with this puzzle of all of the areas of life, and they struggle with how do they create a life, design a life where they can be what I would like to call exceptional, above average at all the areas of life. And that's a really challenging concept, as simple as it is. That really challenges people to think, am I capable of, and then is it okay to be awesome at all areas of life? Because we do live in a culture, and maybe it's generational as well, where we kind of feel like something's got to give. You know, if you're working hard, can you really be great in your family? If you're dedicated to your family, can you really still have friendships that you nurture? You know, if you're eating well and you're moving well, can you really still have a social group that like understands you and gets you? You know, if you're really into money and wealth creation, you know, can you still have a heart and soul that is full of goodness and richness, you know, because a lot of people think money's bad and wealth is bad and so on. So it's interesting, even though it's a simple construct to be great at all areas of life, it does challenge / trigger people to almost justify why. And I have this as well. So as I said, I'm not saying this from a holier than thou perspective. It does challenge people as to how and why they can create a great life in all areas of life. So for 10 plus years, I've been interviewing centenarians and graceful ages, and then going to these European blue zones, Icaria and Sardinia. I've just been really interested in people that have lived great long lives that have been awesome in all areas of life. And then I just like to share that wisdom. I'm a journalist by profession, used to be in sports media and so on. So I like to organize that that wisdom into, I suppose, a coherent method, which I call an exceptional life blueprint that anyone can apply. You know, what I love about the book is that a 25-year-old and a 75-year-old can read the book and they can have an insight of inspiration on the same page, but they're 50 years apart in age, and they're like, oh, that point about never retiring really got me, because a 25-year-old is looking for a career that they'll never want to leave, and a 75-year-old realizes that they love their work, and everyone else is telling them to retire, but they don't want to retire. So, you know, it's an interesting, you know, again, simplistic construct, but an interesting one that I love talking about.
And so the areas are what? Career, movement, social.
Yeah, so I break it up into essentially 3 plans. So we all need a longevity plan. We're all going to live a great long life in Australia. So a long life is largely predicated on your purpose, your movement, and your social life. So your purpose is as simple as a compelling reason to get out of bed each day. I often say we all have the same purpose in life. It's to help people. But what distinguishes you from me, Alysse, is that you help people. Obviously, you've got young children, but in the context of your professional life, it's helping people through permaculture and giving them great insights around the garden. Mine is helping them create their exceptional lives. Again, I've got children as well. So what makes us unique is how we all like to help people somewhat differently. And then physically active and socially active are the 3 other lifestyle markers of longevity. It's very difficult to reach a long life without those 3 in place. And then to put quality into that quantity of life, the quality of life plan is a great relationship to food. You'll get great energy, not just in what you eat, but when you eat, how you eat, where your food comes from, why you eat. Hello to the emotional eaters. And then our family life, that can really impact our quality of life. You know, if you struggle in, I talk about there's 5 different dynamics in the family. There's grandparents and parents above us. Our peer relationships are our siblings and our intimate partner. And then below us is children. Again, it could be grandchildren. It could be steps and in-laws and cousins and nieces and nephews and so on. There's so many more. But our family relationships dictate the quality of our life. They can impact our health. They can impact our longevity, but they definitely impact our Christmas days, our birthdays, our wedding days, our funerals, our special occasions, our milestones, and so on. And growth and wealth are the other 2 elements of a great quality of life. So having fun, inspired hobbies, whether you love to travel, whether you love to garden, that is the number 1 hobby for longevity. And and spending less than you earn is really important, and investing the difference in a country like Australia. Not as important in Thailand, but you want to have a great relationship with money and wealth if you live in Australia listening to this. And then the third plan is your heart and soul plan. So putting your spirit, soul, and faith into all of those preceding 7 areas. So it looks like a triangle inside a circle when I draw it, but purpose, movement, social, and then nutrition, family, growth, and wealth, and then putting our heart and soul into all of those areas of life. And that is the Exceptional Life Blueprint.
And what I love about it from a permaculture sense is that when you speak to a lot of people who have like found permaculture, not grown up with it as like an influence from their parents or school or whatever, is that they normally come for 2 reasons. Either they want to grow better vegetables and they want to garden, and they don't realize that permaculture has all these other things connected to it. They just think they want to learn how to grow better carrots. And the other reason is because they come because of a crisis, and it's normally a health crisis. And that's why I love how this book talks about those things, because people come seeking out those answers and they say, okay, well, I've had a health crisis. I want to invest in eating better food in my life and looking at where my food comes from. And they find permaculture and kind of go down that path. And one point that you make in your book is that there's no point in having a really long life if it's going to be a really poor quality life, or if you're not happy. And I think when you are designing your life and you're coming from a crisis point of view, it's really important to think about that. And like I think you touch in the book, like you don't want to be 50 with Alzheimer's. Like what point is there to your life if that happens? So that's what I think is really interesting.
And I think, and I am going to be your next paying client, Alysse, because I am getting more and more obsessed with gardening, and permaculture fascinates me. My brother-in-law has designed his whole garden on the back of his permaculture insights. So you and I are going to have big chats after this. And your mum has already planted the seed, pardon the pun. But I do think most people, if not all, but at least 99% of people do not, and whether it's because they've seen their parents or their grandparents age poorly, most people do not want to age like their parents or their grandparents or their great-grandparents. They look at the challenge in Australia, and I encourage anyone to not consume too much mainstream media, but if you've been exposed to it over the time, you will be told that Australia is awesome for longevity, and they're true. We are, depending on who's doing the stats, but the World Health Organization gives us 8th on the ladder on the planet for longevity, average 81 for men, 85 for the women. And what no one ever talks about in the mainstream media is that we tumble down the ladder to 21st for quality of life. Technically speaking, that is 12.1 years. 12 years, more than a decade. What's that? Probably 4,000 days of a shit end to the movie. Like, who would want the movie to go for 83 years, and at 70.9, a month before your 71st birthday, you go down to the bakery to get some bread, you hop back in the car, put the keys in the ignition, and have no idea how to get home, and you enter the throes of dementia, which is a 9-year diagnosis to death. Your family life becomes a mess. Your social life becomes a mess. You lose your purpose. Your physical health becomes a mess. Your wealth, which you may have worked so hard to create, becomes a mess. Let's not even talk about your spirit, soul, and faith, and you're definitely not having any fun with dementia. So, that is an all too common experience. I know my dad is 75, 76, and he is in the throes of dementia at the moment. He is a walking, talking statistic, and I love him. God love him, my best mate, but it's hard to watch. And there are many people that can relate to this. And so, I'm 43, you're probably 28, and I reckon there's a lot of us out there, regardless of our age, that look to the generation or generations before us, and we love those people, but we don't want to be like those people. And yes, there's always one or two that go, nah, my grandparent is flying. I go, count your blessings. That's an incredible mentor to have for longevity. But many of us do not have an aging well mentor in our life. And I am not that guy, but I love bringing to people others that are those people. That's why I love going to the European blue zones, Icaria and Sardinia, the island where people forget to die. I mean, what a great place to set an example on how to live a great long life. 80% less dementia, 80% less dementia. 50% less heart disease, 20% less cancer. I mean, and in Sardinia, the needle in a haystack blue zone that has equal amounts of male centenarians to female, whereas around the world it's 5 women for every 1 man. It doesn't that get your head scratching? So it's incredible that, most of us in Australia, we have a good longevity profile. We have longevity, but we don't do very well at quality in our older years. And many people think it's normal. It's not normal. It's common, but it ain't normal. And we've got to wrap our head around that quick smart.
Yeah. And I love over when you see photos when you guys are over in the blue zones and they're all old and wrinkly, but they're happy.
They're
so
dancing,
bloody happy.
They're drinking wine, they're gardening. In Sardinia, you will love this and your listeners as well. In Sardinia, if you go to a little village, Saiulo, and your mum's been here with us just recently, you walk in, their houses in Saiulo is considered I think it's a village of 850 people and there's 45 centenarians in the village. And under them in the 90s bracket, there's 25 or 30 or 35 nonagenarians. So it's not as if it's going away. Anyway, in Saiulo, many of their houses are built on 3 levels. You enter through the bottom level, and in there is often the cellar. It's like the basement, even though it's ground level. It's like the cellar, and a couple of houses we went to, the prosciutto is hanging off the roof and so on. Then you walk upstairs into the living and dining, and there might be bedrooms. Often there might only be a 2-bedroom house. But then the 3rd level is the garden. The 3rd level is the garden. And so these people in their 80s, 90s, 100s, living in 3-story buildings, walking every day, and no wonder they've got all this physical vitality, living great long lives. But their gardening is on the 3rd level, and they have beautiful balconies. I'd love to just show you videos right now and go, look at that, look at that. Beautiful balconies. They cherish their gardening. If you do a lot of longevity research, you see that gardening is the number 1 exercise for longevity. If you get older and you are not gardening, I would say it's probably the first thing that you must do. At 43 years young, I am desperate to spend more time in the garden. And I just have to get over my own lack of knowledge and just get moving and get making mistakes, like a lot of us, that are new to gardening, would probably attest to. So, but I do think we do need to break the shackles of a lot of our beliefs around how to do aging well.
And also those beliefs that are kind of tapped into us, when I know from listening to your podcast as well, you might interview somebody who's running marathons and totally on a pescatarian diet, and then the next person's, only eats meat and they're full on that down that road. It's not particularly a diet per se, or like you said, these people are drinking wine and they're having chocolate and they're enjoying themselves. It's not about being stringent and rigid in the way you do things. That's not what your book is. It's not a, you must eat this, and it's a consideration, and it's thinking about what lights you up, about what makes you feel good internally. And I think that's so important too, because there's no one way.
There's no one way. And I've been thinking about this because as we speak, I am 18 days into a 21-day challenge that I've set myself. Because last year after going to Ikaria, they're very big into Greek Orthodox. And you can imagine in Sardinia, there's a strong Catholic, presence there. But I thought, I asked them over there, I was like, so when you do Lent, what do you do? And, some of them will go without wine, or some of them will go without meat, and some of them will go without coffee. And I thought, I really love that. And I could never get I don't want to say like a weakling, but my will, my desire to do it just never quite got over the line in the preceding, in the 12 months that followed. So I went over this year, Ikaria and Sardinia, and didn't have much milk in my coffee. Had a truckload of wine because the wine is so good over there. Anyway, I came home and said, right, 21 days, no alcohol, no gluten, no milky coffee, no chocolate. I'm just reading off my wall here. Up by 5:45 each day, an hour and a half of movement per day, incidental, structured, whatever, and reading half an hour a day. And I'm like, it's 21 days. I'm not saying I'm going vegan for the rest of my life, because I did that many years ago and stopped after 7 years. I'm not saying I'm becoming a teetotaler forever. I'm not saying I'll never have bread again. But when you look at these incredibly strong elderly people, they have a will, like a strength, what we would call resilience these days, because that's a buzz term. They have a will and a strength that they can do whatever they want when they want. They can drink if they want to, not drink if they don't want to. They can have bread if they want to, not have bread if they don't want to. Giovanni, a man who took us to his house and poured us wine, so much wine, and it was so good. And then we said, come for a walk with us and let's shout you a drink. Let's like essentially go to the bar. And we went to the bar and Giovanni said, I love the company, but I don't want to drink. Now, so he had a water while we had Vermentino and champagne and this and that and whatever. And he had a glass of water. We couldn't spend any money on him. He just refused. Now, many Australians listening to this will go, no, if you go out for a drink, you just go with everyone else. You do shouts and you almost like lose the choice in many ways.
Yeah.
Giovanni's like, I'm coming for the company. I'm not coming for the drink. And I'm like, wow, like they can just switch it on or off. You know, a lot of us, we're either on or we're off. We're like carnivore, you know, or gluten-free. It's all or nothing. And then we build it into our identity. So then we're embarrassed if we want to like have meat, but we've been vegan again. I'm talking to myself because I did that for 7 years. I went off the grog for 5 years. So I was teetotaler vegan, shaving with avocado, like raging vegan. And then I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to go back into the meat eating world and have a drink because I just wanted to cheers my dad for getting married again. I was in Bali. I was like, I just want to have one beer with my dad. I'm not getting smashed. I just want to have one beer. Like, why can't you just be, you know, on or off, like switch around? So I think we do have a lot to learn culturally around our behavior in Australia. And that's why I say, like, we don't have many mentors for how to do this. Again, Australia has a very not shallow culture. We have it's like 200 years. And then it's from a heritage that many of us don't have a great reverence for. Like I know you've got some European heritage, you've got some Croatian heritage. People that have Italian heritage or Greek, or if it's Asian, or if it's Croatian or whatever. I've got some Lebanese heritage, but it's not really baked into my lived experience so much. Those Australians that have that heritage, they even think of it like with gardening. If it's been passed on down the line, it's like baked into your behavior. But if it's not, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It means that you have to consciously create it, which is why I say no one in Ikaria reads my book. No one in Sardinia needs to read my book. They don't need a longevity plan. They don't need to learn about what to eat and how to move their bodies and how to create community in their peer group and how to enjoy their work and have a siesta and chill out and slow down when they get home. They don't need to structure that. It's baked into their like innate intelligence. They just do it. They don't have to think it. Whereas if we don't have it in our upbringing, we have to consciously create our exceptional life, which means we don't get off scot-free. We actually have to pay the price and do the work. So as you can tell, I think it's important work.
Just a tad passionate about it, Marcus. It's funny the hill that we are happy to die on, isn't it? When you get so ingrained, the truths you'll go to tell yourself to make that thing like, no, this is the path. This is the one way to do something. You mentioned community, and that's a really big thing in permaculture. And it's been interesting for me, that journey, because my journey to permaculture was being very stressed out, wanting to shut the world off, took off in a caravan, wanted to just be running our own race kind of thing. But when you start gardening and you start designing your life, community is such a big part of that. And self-sufficiency is a bit of a myth. You know, people go, I want to be self-sufficient and grow my own food. Yeah, that's all well and good, but that's not reality. You know,
until
you
want to
do that. Yes. Or, you know, until you break your leg, and then what?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. There's lots of factors that go into it, but community sufficiency is the new kind of buzz thing that everyone's talking about. And not just for food security, but also for relationships and for having a very whole rounded kind of you, like yourself, but also your community. And can you talk a bit about how they do that in the blue zones and how important it is and what role it plays in their lives?
Yeah, look, there's so many things, and you've just given me all this stuff that I'm thinking about at the moment. I mean, I think the village that we're staying in Ikaria, which is not the best example, but it's a real example. The village is called Nas. It's where National Geographic were based when they did all of their research. So for people that are listening going, they mentioned the blue zones. What are they? There's 5 locations, now technically 6, that were identified as places where they live with not just greater longevity, but quality of life. So reduced morbidity. So what the World Health Organization calls the health adjusted life expectancy. That in Australia, we have 12.1 years of morbidity, lowered quality of life. In these places, it's significantly less. So their dying days are better. And when they're really on top of the ground, they're humming along beautifully. And there's no doubt that community is a pivotal part of it. So in the village of Nas, population 75, 80 people, everyone's related, Alysse, everyone. Second cousins, third cousins, great uncles, nieces, nephews, randoms. Like it's, you go, how do you know that person? Oh, they're married to my second cousins. Like, oh, what? Like the family tree's just wild. But what you realize in Ikaria from a sense of community is that when they have their Panagedi, and anyone Greek listening to this will know, the Panagedi is the festival named after the saint of the church in the village, and the feast day is on the name day of the saint. And so this festival is organized by the community. And in Ikaria, population 7,500, 8,000 people, you might get 500 people, you might get 1,000. The big ones with all the tourists from Athens go nuts. But everyone comes along, whoever wants to come along, depending if it's a day or a night time. And the locals have they've bought the goats from the farmers, but then the locals are making the Greek salads. It's tzatziki. They're frying up the potato chips. They're getting the bread. They're getting all the tables and the chairs. They're organising the band. And then there's just a big festival that, if it's an evening one, people will start arriving from, 7 or 8 o'clock, and everyone buys dinner. It's the same thing. You can have goat chips, Greek salad, bread, tzatziki, red wine, white wine, water. And effectively that's it, right? And everyone buys food, and everyone listens to music and dances, and you look around and you go, this is what life's all about. There's no security guards. There's no crime. There's no violence. There's no, there might be some drunks, the young ones, but everyone might be tipsy, but they're having a lot of fun. And you go, right, do they have purpose? Absolutely. This is a big deal for the locals. Are they moving? Yes, they're dancing like maniacs. Are they social? And is there community spirit? Absolutely. Is there great nutrition? Yes. And they're all eating with others, and they're loving it, and they're not eating quick, and they're drinking their alcohol whilst they drink, and they're putting water in their wine. So they're drinking more slowly. And because they're eating with others, they're talking in between their meals. So the whole process is elongated. Is their family? Yes, because they're here with their parents, their grandparents, their children, their cousins, their aunties, their uncles. Is there growth and fun? Yes, this is so fun, and they might be learning new dances, or they might be teaching the tourists how to do the Ikariatiko, and they're having a great time. Is there wealth? Yes, because they're raising money for the community, and the money that they raise, they will spend on either beautifying the village, or they will give some of that money to a family in need. If someone's had cancer and they need medical expenses, or they've fallen down and broken a hip and they need to get a ferry to Athens to pay for some surgery and so on, money will go to them, and that's organised by a committee. And is there spirit, soul and faith? Absolutely. Obviously, it's Greek Orthodox, but there's heart and soul pulsing through the veins of these people, and you feel it when you're there. Yeah. So I know people might be listening to that going, oh, well, that's just so unachievable. I'm never going to do that in Australia. But you can start by loving where you live. And I don't mean the bricks and mortar, because that's very Australian. It's like, oh, yeah, four bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, double lock-up garage, and a big house but no garden, and big deal. No. Like, no, outside of your house, do you love the people? Do you love going down the street, getting a coffee, restaurants, the gym? I don't care if it's the supermarket, the Pilates, the yoga, the doctors, the community. Like, do you love the people you're around? You become who you hang around. The word community is derived from the French word communauté, which translates to public spirit. Do you love the public spirit? These days we call it the vibe. Do you love the vibe of where you live?
Yeah, totally.
If you don't, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, the time's running out. We're not going to live forever, despite what some longevity gurus will say. It ain't happening, not in our lifetime. Sorry. We struggle to get to 120, let alone live forever. So why would we spend so much of our time in places that we don't love? And we justify it. I'm not telling anyone to listen to this and just sell their house or get out of town, but we justify it by the work opportunities. And yes, that's a thing. There are many people in Ikaria that lived in Athens for 5, 10, 20 years to build their wealth and then move back to Ikaria. So I'm not saying this like just cut and run. It's not what I'm saying. But have a life plan. Have a life plan. In Australia, it might be I'm going to work in the mines for 5 years, but then I'm going to get out, because there are plenty of people that have worked in the mines for 30 years with a plan that was to work in the mines for 2 years, but they never followed through on the plan. So we've got to be very, very clear about this. And community is one thing that is a couple of things. Easy said than done. Secondly, no one will ever be able to stick a needle in your arm and go, oh, I can tell you love where you live and you've got a great social life and you love your friends. They'll never be able to figure that out through a blood test. And third, we know that lack of community or social isolation has a high incidence leading into depression. And we know that a high incidence of depression leads to a high incidence of dementia. And many people will only talk about dementia in relation to getting older, but dementia takes between 20 and 50 years to hit diagnosis point. So if we talk permaculture for a minute, if a weed is 50 years under the ground and, you know, we're 25, we're socially isolated, we don't love where we live, and we bake all these beliefs into our heart and soul that that's just what you do, and then we get to 75 having not loved our work, not loved where we lived, not loved our home, not spent time in the garden, not made efforts to see friends. I'm too busy to catch up with friends. I'm too busy to make friends. And one day we go to the bakery and we can't figure out how to drive home. It's not an aging thing. That was a decision and a belief that we put in the oven and baked on high for 50 years. And so that's why I say it's not about getting older. It's about identifying where you are now and making a plan to, dare I say it, make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Yeah. Well, that's actually our first step. We found where we wanted to be. So traveling Australia, we found our community. We spent time here. We went, we like the vibe. We like the people. They're like-minded. Because for us, we couldn't do the rest. We couldn't do the like better diet and drinking a bit less until we felt like we were kind of planted our feet a little bit. And now that we've done that, we find that's kind of slowly unpacking. And I think because that stress of our life is gone and that we're content here, that the rest kind of has started to become more easeful. I think, you know, we were
done a great job with that. And I know you still, like, because you're a human being and you're alive, you've still got challenges in your life. I've still got challenges in my life. But when you have challenges in your life and you love where you live, I dare say it's a lot easier because you're much more prepared to have those challenges because you don't have the shadow or the cloud of these other areas feeling somewhat disconnected or feeling socially isolated, and that loneliness can feel really challenging. I love what you guys have done, and I dare say when you go there first, like finding where you love to live, a lot of the other things fall into place a lot more effectively. The other times we feel like we're pushing shit uphill, nothing's working. I can get a job, but I can't get a house. I can get a house, but I can't get a job. It's like, because, you know, I know for Sarah and I, when we lived in South Gippsland, Victoria, in Inverloch, we really liked it there. Sarah's mum and dad lived around the corner. We had a business down the road, but we looked at the houses and we're like, we just don't want to buy here. It just didn't fill us with like excitement. And I'm like, that's a clue. I could have put my finger on it. I love the people, but it just wasn't us. It could have been the weather, Don't know, but it just wasn't. And I think that's a really important step for people to take if they're latching onto this conversation that we're having.
And if this conversation has lit something up in someone listening, what do you reckon the best place to start would be when you're looking at your zone 0, and yourself, and, you know, what advice would you give someone?
I think a few things. I think the easiest place to start if it's someone wanting to learn more about my stuff is just take what I call the Exceptional Life quiz. If people go to my website, marcuspearce.com.au, and you'll just see a button right on the homepage there, take the Exceptional Life quiz, and finding out where you are now is the most important thing.
Free.
That's free quiz.
Yeah.
8 questions, rate each area of life out of 10. If not a 10, what's missing? You can fill out as much or as little detail as you like. You'll get a score, like out of 10, so out of 80. And then I recommend work on the lowest scores first. But you can't Google map your life if you don't put in the origin. You know, you've got to know where you are. So where are you now in each area of life? And then if people want to take it a bit further, then they can, the book, I'm happy, and I'll pop a link in the show notes for you, Alysse. I'm happy to give people the book, audio book and ebook as a gift, no charge. So happy for your listeners to get a copy of that.
Thank you.
So I'll just send me a note and I'll send you the link to get that.
That's very generous. Thank you very much. It literally, like, it's such a good book. I've read it, and we did it during Christmas. Actually, I read it during Christmas, and everyone was like, "Okay, Alysse, enough about the fucking book. We've heard it. Like, it's all I talked about for 3 weeks."
Oh, you're like me. Books are like that. Yeah, books are like that. I love that. Obsessive personality, Alysse. You and me both. And then there's other things like the podcast 100 Not Out. If there's any wild people that are like your mum and they want to join us on one of these trips over the years, that's all at 100notout.com. I do other stuff, events and coaching and mentoring and so on, but let's just start small. Do the quiz, get the book, the audio book. If people want coaching or mentoring, they can always just hunt me down. I'm not hard to find. But otherwise I'll just keep on chatting. You're better off shutting me up, Alysse.
Yeah, he just leaves little voice messages whenever he speaks to you on your phone.
That's me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I just think there's so much people can take from this chat, especially because we talk to people who are just starting out their permaculture journey, and it can be really overwhelming to know where to start. And when you want to redesign your life and be more intentional, it can just feel like there's too many things to do. So slow, small steps, and like you said, focusing maybe on one little area at a time. I think it snowballs. Once you kind of get the ball rolling, things just do start falling into place.
Yeah, life design becomes addictive when you can see yourself making small gradual improvement. And that's a great point you raised. Just don't try and overhaul all 8 areas of your life at once. I've had a crack at that, and it's recipe for failure and disaster. Find the weakness, start small, a 24-hour action step, just keep on doing that every day. And that dopamine hit of progress is addictive. It's a beautiful thing. So thanks for having me. It's been a joy.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll talk soon.
Sounds like a plan.
Bye.
Bye.